maybe after you see what this involves, some of you will kind of maybe figure out who you might want to partner with. And secondly, I know that sometimes I get students in this class that don't know anybody from anybody. And if you don't know anybody to ask to be your partner, don't have any other classes with anybody else, just let me know. I can take a list of you guys and try to pair you up and help you along. But I want to show you what this project is. And oh yeah, this was on Zoom too. Okay. So Bismuth, send me an email to remind me, and Daniel, you too, that you guys are actually on Zoom, so I don't forget, and give you guys credit for participation. And so, group presentations, November 30th, December 2nd. That's the first two class meetings after the Thanksgiving break. And so, purpose. In K through 12 and in college and in a lot of other educational settings, typically people, teachers set out and they do course objectives, set the goals, and then you work back from there. And so the purpose is really could be stated differently as objectives. But that being said, develop research skills first, top bullet. I've been encouraging you, and you guys have been doing some things with finding sources. Library sources, you guys know what peer-reviewed sources are now. You guys bring in a lot of those same skills as well. And as just an aside, when you guys do citations, I don't see any fun facts about the pyramids, or I don't see any alien architects coming down from space and building the pyramids and stuff. So you guys are pretty good on research so far, and this is why we talk about research up front before I ask you to do the big project. Second thing, public speaking. And so that's going to be a skill. I don't care, almost don't care what you're majoring in. Public speaking is a skill that will serve you well. Now on this project, it's kind of public speaking and it's not public speaking. Once upon a time before COVID, I asked students to come up here and do a presentation as though they were teaching the class. And that was really pretty cool. And that was true public speaking. What I'm going to be asking you to do is actually kind of turn up a notch or two. I'm going to be asking you to do speaking, video, and audio. And so you're going to be making a presentation and you're going to be narrating it, but not actually standing up here like in front of a podium or something and doing traditional speaking. I thought about this one a lot. I think COVID has revealed that this kind of skill will actually be much more necessary as we go. You guys will be doing a PowerPoint that turns into a video. And video is like everything. Now, video, here, YouTube, TikTok, anything. Bottom line is that's a pretty major way we communicate. What, back when I was your age, all we had was a telephone. And it didn't have FaceTime. Didn't even have push buttons. It had a thing that spun around. Put your finger in it. I'm giving away my age. Sorry. I go on these rants because I'm old. Bottom line is that video, making good video presentations is a really big skill and will probably not change. So we kind of, now that COVID has been inflicted upon us, we use Zoom, we use a lot of things that we probably would not have used before. So anyway, this is, even though it's turned up a notch, the expectations, I think, have been turned up a notch or two as well. And so knowledge, that's always an objective. Want you to learn something, want you to know more about this stuff than when you came in. By all evidence, I think that part of it's working. This is just another step along that way. PowerPoint. I don't know if you still do this so much. I think it happens. So a lot of times when you're looking for employment, they ask you what software are you familiar with? Especially you guys doing anything in the digital realm. Bottom line, are you familiar with A, B, C, D, what kind of software? And PowerPoint's been a mainstay, kind of the baseline. So I want you to know it. And the other part of it is it evolves. And this actually evolved since the last time I did this in a class. Talk about that later. Working cooperatively. That's always something employers want to see. Can you work well with others? This is not a rumor. This is not conjecture. There are people in higher ed that interface with the business community, with other entities, and they find out, they do surveys, just like we ask you to do surveys all the time. How was the food in the lunchroom and whatever. We survey potential employers. And we ask them, what skills do you value in your hirees, in the people you employ? What are you looking for? And working cooperatively is really pretty high up on the survey scores. So that's been a mainstay too. I don't know if you guys have experiences in your education to date. A lot of things are solitary pursuits. But back in the day, back when I was your age, I'm going old again. The only thing we ever worked with other people in school was science labs, biology labs and stuff, chemistry lab. You'd have a lab mate. But nowhere else in the education that I had did I ever have to work with anybody else. How many of you are any of you printmakers? No printmakers. Do they offer that here, printmaking? Because I still haven't met it. I haven't seen it on the list of areas of concentration. Bottom line, printmaking in art, it demands cooperation. It's a kind of art making that you can't really do by yourself. You have to have somebody running the press, and you have to have somebody pulling the pages off the end of the press, and so on. Somebody carrying them off to the drying rack. It's a lot easier when you work as a group. Printmakers are good cooperative workers. So anyway, that's why we do it. And secondly, the specifications. This is what is the heart. This is the meat on the bones here. Want your presentations to be 7 to 10 minutes. And the next two bullet points and the last one, I want to see that in the form of a PDF that you submit when you do your presentation. And that is a summary of participation. And so we got groups of 2. If one of you is doing all of the work, you'll probably be the one writing about how your partner was a slacker. If you were the slacker, you probably don't know what anybody else is saying about you. But I do want to find out, and that's an extreme example, but I do want to find out who did what. And that'll be helpful for a lot of reasons, but it is evidence that you guys have been working together. And a bibliography, as usual, but this will be a separate document, PDF or Word. And then finally, a transcript. All of the stuff that you say in the PowerPoint, all of the narration. I want a verbatim transcript of everything that's said in the narration. And so that can help in a couple of ways. One is you can write the transcript. Instead of calling it a transcript, you could call it a script. You could write out what you will say on your narration. That will help you organize. It'll help you find the right words. And you see, I don't run with a script here. And every once in a while, you'll hear me say, what am I looking for? Oh, transcript. Yeah, gotta wait for my brain to catch up. Well, you don't want to do that on this PowerPoint. You want to say, I'm gonna Stonehenge. Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot what that was. Don't want that kind of thing. You want your narration to be as clean, as smooth as possible. And so the 7 to 10 minutes is a PowerPoint with maps and images of the subject matter. You can also, in that PowerPoint, as customary, put bullet points in there, put some other information on the PowerPoint slides, however you want to handle this. And so those are the specifications. And here is the subject matter. This is what you'll be presenting on. I want you to do a painting, a sculpture, or architecture before 1300. You can go up to 1400 and still be in this part of the book. But bottom line is, I want to stay within the parameters of the book. Don't want to go off the reservation, as they say. I want to stay in bounds. And so that's the subject, your choice. You have a partner that's disagreeable, and you got to find another partner, I guess. But one thing, I want to kind of discourage you from doing Stonehenge, and you'll see why in a minute. But anyway, so first consideration, cultural context to include the following: the time, that's the date of creation. As much as we know, I know that a lot of the things we've looked at are guess. CA means circa 1300 BCE. But at any rate, and the place of its creation, the purpose of the work. That is actually, that covers a lot of things. I think most importantly, it covers the content and why the work was made. And so I had to write it as purpose of the work. If you were talking about Egyptian wall paintings inside a tomb, there's a purpose for that. Tells you who's buried here. It's all in praise and honor of the pharaoh that's been buried here. Gives a history. It's a history lesson. It's whatever. Standard of verb. We saw that pretty early on. Has two sides: the war side, the peace side. We talk about it being a standard, which means that they think it was used like a flag. If you were the guy holding the flag, you are the standard bearer. That's where that all comes from. But the purpose of it is that it is a flag. It identifies a group used pretty much like a flag would be used today. We think maybe it was used in battle. Let's show, this is, we're the good guys. That's what flags do. You see paintings of old battles, you'll see there is a standard bearer on each side. Keep the armies organized. A reminder of what you're fighting for. But at any rate, standard of verb, we think that, but what it says and what it does is the basic summary of C, the purpose of the work. And sometimes it's to be a memorial about somebody who's dead. Sometimes it's there as a monument to someone's glory. Sometimes it's a religious object or a scene, or is it a place to pray? It's a place where people are buried. Whatever. Power. We'll talk a little more about that here in a minute, but power basically drives much of the narrative of everything that we've seen today. We're going to see a little bit here that's not really so much driven by power. But why power? Power has money. Money commissions art. If you commission a sculptor or a painter to make something, typically you want some what they call ROI, return on investment. And so in some cultures and different times, it's you might hire an artist for religious purposes. Same reason you're building the cathedrals, the churches, the mosque, and so on. So the artwork has to fit. Power, all of these statues of Ramses II, gigantic sculptures made of sandstone. Glorification. etc. But power typically drives art making now and in the past. So I'm going to pull an aside here. If that were true, what is the power today that drives art making? Or is there? Does that even still exist? I show you if we look at all slides from Byzantium, take the PowerPoint, look at the entirety, see all slides, and then look at them, say religion, 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 religion. It's all about Christianity, buildings, what little sculpture there was, and all of the painting and mosaics, all Christian. Christian iconography, places of worship, etc. What's the force that drives art making today? You're an artist and you want to get paid, what do you do?
I think it depends on like what's going on in like society. Because like sometimes you'll see artwork to paint that like fits relationships or like a lot now that you kind of see kind of goes on like gay or lesbian couples.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that, first of all, I got to see if you want to draw some lines on what kind of art. And so there is a lot of artwork being done or to promote civil rights. I keep thinking about that George Floyd mural in Minneapolis, it became real famous. It's about justice. Can't beat that. But in another way, there's artists that design everything. Design this shirt. Design the logo for Maryville. So if you want to get paid, you kind of do what might be called commercial art. Or if you want to do something different, you may be doing graphic novels, you may be doing your work online and doing it digitally. And so, yeah, I think the answer to that is it's kind of widespread today, not like a single idea. And you're absolutely right. There's political art, there's commercial art, there's this other thing that we call folk art, high art, if there is such a thing, and so on. So the power is kind of dispersed, the money's kind of dispersed, but there still is that very rich upper class that buys and owns the kind of stuff that you'll see, say, like in the St. Louis Art Museum. People that own Jackson Pollock's and Mark Rothko paintings. Even sometimes there are people, the actor, comedian Steve Martin, he has a whole collection of abstract expressionist art. Anyway, connected to the power that drove this, and I think Kelsey is such a good example because the power in what you were talking about gay and lesbian rights and things like that. The power is the movement, civil rights movement, etc. And belief system, that kind of ties right in to this. And so all of this stuff that you can put into your presentation that will enhance the understanding. It shows me that you understand it. And secondly, you will enhance the understanding of the viewers that see this presentation, your classmates. And so another aspect is formal analysis. And what is formal analysis? It's like you go to the prom, that's formal, wearing a tux, weddings, not. Has to do with the word form and what form does the work itself take. And so here's something from the Getty Museum. I want to make sure our folks at home can see this. Yes, they can. Elements of art: line, shape, and form, space, color, and texture. And so we kind of use a lot of these characteristics of the artwork to kind of help us talk about it and help us describe what it is. Here's, it talks about horizontal and vertical lines. Horizontal, this is basically a landscape here. That's a horizon line. Vertical, there's a upward movement. Vertical, we're talking about spires, minarets on places of worship. They go up to the sky. It represents spirituality, etc. Curved lines, form, height, width, depth, etc. So anyway, when you describe your work, pick through, take a look at this and pick through, make sure you're using the right vocabulary. Those of you who have taken basic design know all of this stuff already. In fact, that's one of the first things you do in design one is learn the vocabulary of the discipline. And so you start talking about color, hue, value, intensity. Julia's shaking her head because you are an art major. You gotta be, yes. And so anyway, that's why that's it. And so I'm gonna make sure I still got to share. Yeah, we're good. Good, good. And legacy. What is the legacy? Maybe it doesn't have a legacy. What I mean by that is what comes after the work you're presenting and the work that comes before what you are presenting and what comes after. So we looked at Egyptian architecture, we looked at Greek architecture, we looked at Roman architecture. So the legacy after that, the Valley of the Kings, Queen Hatshepsut. I showed you that long, very horizontal system of pillars and stuff. I showed you the parade grounds at Nuremberg in Germany. That's a legacy thing. That was designed by the Egyptians. Another Egyptian legacy issue, for example, the obelisk as a marker, a memorial. That is that pointed pillar, narrow, geometric, has a pyramid on top. Showed you that, and they show up all over the place. They show up in Rome. They show up in all over Europe. They showed up in Washington, D.C. as a Washington Monument. That's legacy. Could go on and on about the Greek architecture and their columns and pediment, how that's used all the way up until modern times. You take a look at some of the official buildings in Washington, DC, the Supreme Court, for example, Lincoln Memorial, etc. See, the Jefferson Memorial looks a whole lot like the Pantheon in Rome. That's legacy, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, not everything has a legacy, but most of it does. You can put together some things, and a lot of this stuff doesn't have to be quite so obvious. If you can make some connections that you don't find online, but you can make a pretty good case just based on what the work looks like, we'll be good with it. And so the steps: choose partners. I got about half of you guys got that one done. Choose subject matter, and that's between you and your partner. Set meeting times, and here is where it starts getting a little tricky. Reason I stuck with this format is that it seemed like we could do this and maintain our COVID precautions. And I said, set meeting times. What that might mean is if you are not roommates with your partner, or your partner is somebody you don't even really know yet, you can do this by electronic means. You can take a PowerPoint and start collecting images. You can start making slides, and you can send that PowerPoint presentation back and forth as an email attachment. And when it goes to your partner, he or she can make their adjustments, send it back. You make some more adjustments, send it back, and do it that way. We could maintain safety and keep our COVID precautions intact. If you are partners with somebody you interact with on a daily basis, you can figure out your own scheme. But this can be done without spreading or creating an outbreak of COVID. And so I know you guys are vaccinated. I know you guys come in here and you've been real good about wearing masks and things. So I feel pretty good, but I'm just throwing it out there because I don't want you to forget, at least for the time being, that we're still in the middle of a pandemic and people still do get sick. So please, I want you to be safe. I want you to be careful. And so assigned tasks, that's between you and your partner. You know, one of you could be doing research, the other could be looking for photos. One of you could be, you know, whatever. I'll write the narrative, or we'll switch off, or however. Rehearse, record, and publish. And the thing about the PowerPoint, and I'll show you this in a second, about the PowerPoint is that you can turn it into, when you do a narrated recording, it turns it into an MP4. It actually, the file changes. And so once you turn in MP4, then everything's all on. And so let me pull this down here because I can't see my menu. Okay. And so let me see if I can go back to what I need. Share. Boom. There. I have to kind of start over a little bit, but here we go. Formal analysis and power structures. Let me show you this first. Assembling a PowerPoint. And I think we're good. Assemble your slideshow. And I put my own pictures on there. Actually, this is some of my own artwork. I haven't made any of these for a while, but I was making these light box pieces with LED lights and other objects. And so this is battery operated LED, and this in the middle is one of those squeezed stress relievers in the shape of a heart. I got it when I was giving blood. So squeeze every 10 seconds. They took my blood, I took their stress. Anyway, this is this is a way I would do it. I mean, put your pictures in, make your slides. There's another one of my works. Lightbox has an aquarium, and this didn't photograph too well because the way the light bounces around, but I got a lot of toys in there. Even got some goldfish crackers, you know, just brains, the pedestal brain. Okay, so there you put your slides together, and that's what this is over here. You got your slides, and then you can do this. You can, this is the new thing on PowerPoint. It's called Rehearse with Coach. And you can do some recording, but you haven't published it, so you can redo it and do it over, and it gives you some suggestions and things. It's kind of interesting. And the other part is it just says you can rehearse timings too. And that's where that transcript or the script comes in. You kind of figure slide one, it's the introduction. We got it 3 sentences, 20 seconds, whatever. But at any rate, you rehearse the timings. And the more you rehearse this, the better it will be. And I'll show you what that's all about. And then you move through the slides while you're narrating. So as you're talking, you have to manually click onto the next slide. But while you're recording, it'll do that. And that's really how you do it. But there's a lot more to this than that. And I do want to show you this. I think I played part of this for you. I want you to look at it again. We'll go through the whole thing. And I want you to think about, as we're playing this, tell me what was good about it or what you would do differently. And so this is the actual thing. And it looks like we got the right share.
For our presentation, we chose Stonehenge and I'm Alex.
You guys hear that back there?
And although there are many theories, it is not known where the time is. society was formed, and you can see the many different artifacts that are found on the site and the various tourist. So Stonehenge's background, it was the most sophisticated stone circle during prehistoric times in the world. It is constructed today around 31 BC, 3100 BC, and completed over 1,000 years later. The monument is located 88 miles southwest of London in a town called Salisbury, and it is classified under for being the largest cremation cemeteries known in the Atlantic Britain. Today it is used by pagans with some similarities with Druids. They often use Stonehenge for formal ceremonies, normally long before characterized under Neolithic design, brought over and after 1800 BCE. So after he built however, it had been constructed in 1000 before. Despite this, modern Jewish belief in it's more likely that several stone tools and other artifacts were So one of the theories behind Stonehenge is that many people believe that this monument was built by the Romans and Phoenicians. However, there aren't any clues to prove that these were actually true behind creating the stones. First, way back when the Romans established their territory across Europe and saw Stonehenge as an element for art, which was important enough for them, and later it became a symbol of unification of Britain. Today, it is seen as a popular tourist site as for people to look at these massive ancient rocks formed in a circle and to tell which theories they really wanted to believe behind the historian what they were told. Another theory was there was this hyper illusion where there would be points where two fibers are playing music, the sound waves would cancel each other out, creating spots, causing the sound to lessen. Stonehenge was planned to be built at the direction of Merlin, who was the leader of the Druids and was responsible for bringing the stone. The Druids were priests of the three Catholic tribes, and that theory has stood for almost over 300 years. So, Stonehenge's construction was quite a lengthy process. Stonehenge began to structure around 900 BC. Around the structure was built inside the enclosure and one first 80 stories of formed two concentric circles. These two stones making circles started to be positive slabs out of walls. Very small person wants to take horizontally. Five more of these horizontally take. This comes from multiple times. So what was really Stoneman's main purpose? What means Stoneman's environment was seen as a solar calendar and marked the movement of the sun along with the two solstices, the winter and the summer. The presence of human remains suggests that Stonehenge could have served as an animal burial ground as well as a ceremonial complex for the temple of the people who were deceased. Most people and historians saw it as a place for healing for those who were sick. As you can see, Stonehenge is now visited by many people across Britain because of its massive size, stones, and the ancient stories that are told behind it. Parker Pearson suggests that the Welsh bluestone was the first to be put in place at Stonehenge, and that is really important. The stone was considered to be an ancestral symbol for Western Britain, and at that time they served as the center for the worship for the Christians. So when looking at right. And here below are works cited sources for more information where we got it from.
So. What was good? What would you change? Elsie?
I think we could have rehearsed it a little bit better. It seemed like there was times where they were kind of mumbling or they just didn't really know what to say.
I think that's a good point. That's what I was talking about, the script versus the transcript. If you start this script early, you'll, as they say, take care of two problems or kill two birds with one stone, but I don't like to kill birds. I won't say that. But bottom line is, if you had the script written out, it would help the presentation, and you already have the transcript done for that. So that's a good comment. I'll tell you some things that are good. One is there's no background noise. And so if we were doing this in here right now, you'd be hearing whoever's playing something in this group, and you'll be amazed at how much sound, ambient sound will get picked up. It's really fortunate. Yesterday, when I was talking about that as an issue, there was some guy out here with a leaf blower making a lot of noise. I said, that's going to show up on my Zoom recording. And this is the same thing. I had one presentation that I think they must have done it out by the airport, because I could hear these big jets taking off and landing and stuff. So it probably lived in Bridgeton, probably lived there, and probably their whole life been listening to that. Don't even think about it. But for this, you really got to think about it. You got to make sure that you're in a quiet place. How about was the language clear and understandable? Michael.
I got the like, which is more like slow, kind of like slower, more low. I couldn't really hear half of the stuff they were saying.
Yes, I agree with that too. So yeah, that's another thing. Speak clearly, deliberately. And so I picked this because it kind of did both things. I picked this one as an example because there are some issues with this. There are some good things about it too. As I said, there's no ambient noise, but they could have spoke more clearly. One thing that I liked, although I wish it would have spoken a little more about it, was the legacy, because it did compare this to other stone monuments, monoliths in circular patterns and things. That was good. That was like legacy, you know. And there's another way they could have gone with the legacy in that there are a lot of people who have kind of revived some of the ancient religions, Druid religions and so on. And this is like a holy site for them, and they've revived the religious significance of this place as well. And so, and there were some things too, I might add, that whatever you do, check the date on your information. And that really wasn't an issue for this, although some of this stuff, most of it was really pretty recent. One of them's from July 7th, 2017. But when these guys were talking about the stones and where they came from and what kind of stone it was, he was saying they really didn't know, and it was still a mystery. That mystery has mostly been solved, actually, but that's been recently. And how it was solved was this. This is an issue. And that is that, remember, I don't know if you remember, if you don't, that's okay. Remember I was talking about the Parthenon, and they had tourists there, and for hundreds of years, people would go visit the Parthenon and take a piece, put it in their pocket and take it home. Now, in the 21st century, they're trying to put all of those little stones back together to rebuild the Parthenon, and they're finding out that a lot of this is just not there. And in today's world environment, it's a crime. You can't do that. You go to jail if they catch you picking up stones from the Acropolis. Well, they found a guy, I think he came forward, but somehow he was identified an American former service person, a guy who served in World War II, and he was stationed in England, and he went out to Stonehenge and he took a piece of Stonehenge back home. Retired, 95 years old, living in Florida. They've taken, he kind of fessed up to it and said, hey, I got a piece of Stonehenge. And so Stonehenge itself, they don't like to be chopping around. They don't like to do testing on Stonehenge itself, because a lot of the testing methods actually destroy or damage the monument itself. But this guy came out with this like 45-pound chunk of it that didn't have any restrictions on it, because he stole it before it was against the law. And so he turned it over to a lab at a major university, and they figured out where that stone came from, what it was made of, and all of this other stuff. So, but my point the news keeps coming. It keeps coming at a very rapid pace. I've never seen anything like this in my life. This is the information age. And we have many, many people out there in the fields today discovering antiquity, whether it's human-made artifacts, remnants from previous cultures, or fossils, or whatever. They're finding this stuff all of the time. And so the information changes. And saying that, I do want to show you this. This is the last thing I have for you today. You can read it on at your leisure if you want it, but it basically says Sparta was much more than an army of super warriors. When we were looking at Greek art, I was telling you about Sparta and Spartan and how these young males, and it actually goes into saying this, it says, where every male was raised from infancy to fight to the death. That's what I was talking about, Sparta. And these guys led what we call Spartan lives. And they didn't need blankets, they didn't need a lot of sleep. They could sleep on a pile of gravel. 2 hours, wake up, march another 100 miles. That's what they were trained to do from infancy. Now they're saying they got evidence that was really kind of a myth. And in fact, they weren't that much different than anybody else. And so it kind of traces how the myth evolved. And here's another line. Actually, Spartans could be as cowardly and corrupt and is as likely to surrender and flee as any other ancient Greeks. I'm just saying. What's the date on this? Oh, October 21. That's what I mean. Bottom line, the information is changing. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're doing your research. If you come up with something from a long time ago, you might want to just fact check that. Because here's something I told you just a couple of weeks ago, and you're saying, wrong. And so when we come back on Thursday, we'll talk about quiz 3. If I still have a couple of them hanging out there, don't have them, get them to me. Because after we go over them in class, it's over. Right? So anyway, any questions about the presentation? I've been talking a lot, making very little sense, trying to get you guys to laugh at my jokes and not happening. So Thursday, I'll see you then. And you know where to find me if you want to, you pick a partner, let me know. And your subjects, I'm going to take them in order. I don't want everybody doing the same thing. So there's plenty to choose from. You got a
We're
question?
gonna be partners. Yeah.
Okay.
My name's Kate. I'm Greg.
Oh, for the presentation? November 29th. Yeah, I'm not trying to jam you guys up. I'll give you plenty of time to do it.
We're gonna be partners. Do you need our names?
Oh, all right.
So just a second.
Yes, I can do that. Let me find out where's my page, write them down, and so page, Kelsey.
Yep. Thank you.
Aye.